Hello and welcome to the Argyle IT Solutions Expo. My name is Vicki Lynn with Argyle. It's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we will turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Cohesity. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience today at any time during the event. You can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page, and that does include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during the events. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag Argyle Digital and follow us on X, Twitter at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, be sure to subscribe to Argyle on YouTube for exclusive access to all of our past events. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. And following each presentation, we've set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on those questions. Thank you everyone again for joining us today. Now let's get started. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nikki Benvenuti, best-selling author of the Best Digital Marketing Book, founder of AEK Solutions, and an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon. We are so excited to have Nikki with us for our opening keynote presentation titled Strategic Vendor Partnerships, Maximizing ROI in the Era of Cloud and AI. Welcome, Nikki, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Vicki Lynn. It's a pleasure to be here today. We will have time for Q&A, so please feel free to engage in the chat and we will get to your questions. So today we're going to be asking, are you maximizing the return on your vendor partnerships? Right now, the average enterprise level company works with over 1,200 different cloud services and vendors. So there's certainly room to maximize ROI and ample opportunity to do so. Approaching vendor partnerships strategically certainly pays off. Those companies that focus on maximizing their ROI can return up to 23% higher. But how? So that's what we will cover today. Today, we're going to talk about exactly how to define tangible ROI benefits. We're going to talk about the best practices for vendor selection and management, real case studies and success stories, common pitfalls and how to avoid them, and where the space in vendor management is headed next. So we're going to evaluate and optimize your vendor relationships and drive measurable business value. Some key benefits. So in 2025, different types of partnerships can amplify your organization's capabilities. There's 4 different ways to look at ROI across these partnerships. So the first would be, of course, cost optimization. The second, innovation acceleration. The third, scalability and flexibility. And lastly, risk mitigation. So the first, cost optimization. Strategic partnerships can deliver cost benefits through consolidated vendor management. You can reduce the administrative overhead of managing multiple partnerships. For instance, services, like DocuSign and Monday.com are now offering additional services, so you don't necessarily have to have separate partners for different functions. Volume discounts across services, so leveraging your total spend for better rates. Reduced integration costs, so working with vendors who play well together. Instead of having a single point of contact internally for each of your vendors, having meetings where your vendors can actually collaborate, and each own separate KPIs or initiatives as a part of a project can be very lucrative. And faster deployment. So getting solutions live quickly, of course, reduces your opportunity cost as well as your costs. Secondly, innovation acceleration. So your strategic vendor partner should be extending your R&D capabilities, not just providing services. So the best partnerships will give you early access to new features and capability, such as those we see now with AI, technical expertise that supplements your team, co-innovation opportunities, as well as industry insights and benchmarking. Thirdly, scalability and flexibility. With each of your vendors, you need to be able to scale up quickly as opportunities arise. And then you also want to be able to scale down when needed without being locked into rigid contracts. One thing we see increasingly more in the post-COVID era is that accounts, accounts are often scaling down during the holiday seasons as well as in the summers, whenever the workplace tends to be less active. And so basically what we're looking at is elastic resource allocation, flexible pricing models, geographic expansion support, and rapid capability deployment. Fourthly, we want to look at risk mitigation. So the right vendor partners are actually going to reduce your business risk rather than adding vendor risk. And so what you're going to be looking for here are shared responsibility for security and compliance, disaster recovery and business continuity support, regular security updates and patches, and regulatory compliance assistance. The best agencies, whether digital or tech, tend to have regular updates, whether on newsletters or social media, or even within your meetings where they'll be talking to you about changes to policies, within the services that you're using. So basically, there's certainly a compound effect here. So cost savings are going to essentially free up your budget. The budget ideally now should be used for innovation and to stay on top, of your field. Innovation is going to drive growth that requires scalability, and then the scalability managed well will reduce the risk. So it all fits together. Now for some best practices. So this strategic partnership framework can essentially be thought of as a GPS for vendor partnership access. So first you need to define goals with each of your vendors. So what exactly does success look like? This can be the achievement of some sort of project, such as in software by a certain end date. This can be specific KPIs in the case of marketing that must be achieved by a certain date. But you really need to define what success looks like at the beginning of any engagement. Secondly, you need to define the process and intentional management. So exactly how often will KPIs be iterated? What are the benchmarks? And who is going to be held accountable and by whom? And then lastly, structures. Is setting up structures that are going to enable your partnership success. So when thinking about goals, and strategic alignment, questions to ask might be, what business outcomes are we trying to achieve? How does this partnership support our 3-year strategy? What capabilities do we have that the partner offers that we can't build ourselves? And how will we measure success beyond cost savings? These are all great questions to answer, not only internally before you meet with the potential partner, but then also to collaborate with the partner themselves on. Most agencies are well equipped to answer these sort of questions. In terms of goals, vendor selection criteria tends to be as follows. So 30% technical capability, 25% strategic fit, 20% with a partnership approach, 15% financial stability, and 10% cultural alignment. By technical capability, we mean, can they deliver what you need? By strategic fit, do their roadmaps align with your goals? With partnership approach, do they want to partner or just sell? In terms of financial stability, will they be around for the journey? And lastly, with cultural alignment, can your teams work together effectively? These are all things to consider when selecting a vendor, as well as aligning the vendor with your goals. Moving into the life cycle of a partnership, great partnerships are going to require intentional management. I like to think of this as having 4 separate phases. First, discovery and alignment. So having joint business planning sessions. These can be team to team. These can be single point of contact with the team, the vendor team that you'll be working with. We've also had these work very well where we've actually met one-on-one with executive teams or individually before, joint planning sessions as well. Technical architecture reviews, success criteria definition, and risk assessment workshops. One of our most popular services that we're offering right now is actually an AI readiness assessment, which determines not only a group's propensity to handle AI technology, but also their internal cultural readiness to do so. In phase 2, with pilot and proof, small-scale implementation, performance measurement, relationship testing, and process refinement. After, in phase 3, you move to scale and optimize. So broader deployment, continuous improvement, regular business reviews, and strategic planning integration. Lastly, in phase 4, you can scale and optimize with new use case exploration, technology roadmap alignments, partnership deepening, and innovation collaboration. The third part of 4 is structure. So having governance that works. You want to enable partnership success without creating more bureaucracy. So essentially having executive sponsorship. Both organizations should have C-level commitment and regular touch points, not only with those who will be working together as points of contact, but also between executives. I recommend this generally every 3 to 6 months. Working teams. So having cross-functional teams from both sides that are going to meet regularly to solve the problems and identify opportunities. Regular reviews can include monthly operational reviews, quarterly business reviews, and annual strategic planning sessions. And lastly, shared metrics. So having dashboards that both organizations can monitor in real time with clear accountability for outcomes. Communication is key. So communication is essentially going to make or break your partnerships. There obviously needs to be a regular cadence. We recommend for most tech and marketing vendors having a weekly operational sync and a monthly strategic review where metrics and other data are concentrated upon. Escalation paths. So having clear processes for resolving issues quickly. Transparency. Sharing your challenges. Great partners want to help you solve them. And documentation, recording decisions, changes, and lessons learned. Not just action items, but also information that may lead to opportunities for both parties in the future. Having your content structured for success is also vital. Structuring your contracts means that you're going to want to enable partnership and not just procurement. So 4 ways to do this would be outcome-based SLAs, tying the vendor success to your business outcomes. 2, innovation clauses, so including provisions for co-innovation and IP sharing. Thirdly, flexibility mechanisms, so built-in ways to adapt as your needs may change. And 4th, mutual investment. Both parties should have some sort of skin in the game. Here are a couple case studies that demonstrate the principles that I'm speaking through. So in case study 1, there's a global retailer who was deploying resources with AWS. So the global retailer was struggling with seasonal demand spikes that required massive infrastructure scaling for Black Friday and holiday shopping, but it left them over provision for the rest of the year. The partnership approach was a joint architectural design for elastic scaling, shared marketing initiatives during peak seasons, co-innovation on new retail technologies, and having regular business planning sessions. As a result of these changes, they experienced a 45% reduction in infrastructure costs, more uptime during peak periods, new revenue streams through marketplace capabilities, and early access to AI-powered recommendation engines through AWS that increased their conversion by 12%. The key here was that they treated AWS as a strategic partner, not a service provider. So AWS was invested in understanding their business and co-created solutions. In the second case study, another client of ours, there was a large healthcare system that was needed to modernize patient data management while maintaining strict HIPAA compliance and integrating with legacy systems. And so what happened here was that Microsoft provided dedicated healthcare industry expertise and the joint development of an AI-powered diagnostic tool. They also shared their investment in the security and compliance infrastructure and co-marketed new telehealth capabilities. As a result, the client experienced 30% faster patient diagnosis through AI assistance, $50 million in annual cost savings through process automation, and 95% physician satisfaction with the new systems. There were also new revenue streams that were created with the telehealth services. The takeaway? The best partnerships can evolve beyond the original scope as trust and success will build momentum. Lastly, another case study was with a client in financial services and with Salesforce. So a mid-sized financial services firm needed to improve their customer experience and regulatory reporting while also growing their business. Salesforce dedicated industry specialists to their account. They had joint development of financial services specific features and shared compliance and security responsibilities. That was key. There were regular strategic planning sessions with executive teams for both companies as well. As a result, there was a 40% improvement in 40% improvement in customer satisfaction scores. There was a 25% increase in cross-selling success and 60% faster regulatory reporting. There were new product capabilities that actually attracted $100 million in new business. Both organizations committed executive time and resources to make the partnership strategic, not just transactional. So what do these successes have in common? Well, there was executive commitment from both organizations. There were shared business outcomes and not just technical deliverables. There was investment in the relationship building beyond just contract management. There was continuous evolution of the partnership as needs changed, and measurable ROI that went beyond cost savings. Here are some common challenges and solutions. One common challenge is misaligned expectations. The problem, you think you're getting a strategic partner and they think they're delivering a product or a specific service. That disconnect can lead to frustration on both sides. The solution, document mutual expectations in writing during the sales process. Create joint success criteria that both teams understand. These can be objectives, the identification of opportunities, as well as specific KPIs. Schedule expectation alignment sessions quarterly, and use shared dashboards to track the progress against these agreed outcomes. One example, a client avoided a partnership breakdown by discovering early that their strategic vendor was planning to transition them to a junior support team after the go-live. A conversation with the vendor reset expectations and secured continued senior engagement. Challenge 2, vendor lock-in anxiety. The problem? You want deep relationship benefits, but you fear being trapped with one vendor. A couple solutions could be negotiating data portability clauses upfront. Who owns the data and who is allowed access? Maintain some multi-vendor capabilities in critical areas. Build partnerships with complementary rather than competing vendors, and include partnership exit provisions that protect both parties. The best partnerships are going to make you want to stay, not trap you into staying. Thirdly, internal resistance. Another problem is that your team can prefer managing multiple vendors for leverage and control, rather than consolidating. The solution? Start with pilot partnerships with new vendors to demonstrate their value, as well as their level of collaboration with your team. Include team members in vendor selection and relationship management. Show clear ROI metrics from early partnership successes, and provide training on partnership management skills. Here, we want to think about change management in terms of framing partnerships as expanding capabilities, not reducing control. Performance management is another challenge. Traditional SLAs don't capture partnership value. Solutions? Again, develop those outcome-based metrics upfront and align them with your business goals. Include innovation and relationship quality measures. Create balanced scorecards that reflect partnership value, and implement regular business reviews beyond technical performance. You want to measure what you want to achieve. What gets measured gets achieved, not just what's easy to count. And lastly, scale and complexity. So one problem is that managing strategic partnerships requires more time and skill than vendor management. So what you want to do is you want to invest in partnership management capabilities and training. Use partnership management platforms and tools. Create centers of excellence for vendor relationship management, and dedicate senior resources to your most strategic relationships. Strategic partnerships require strategic resource allocation internally. Moreover, you need to have a success mindset. The mindset shift around your vendors can make all of the difference. You want to treat challenges as partnership opportunities to grow and expand. When issues arise, engage your strategic partners in solving them together. And remember, the best partnerships get stronger under pressure. The future outlook of vendor management is as follows. AI is changing vendor partnerships in 3 ways. First, predictive partnership management. AI is predicting which partnerships will succeed and flagging potential issues. Yes, this is currently in its infancy, but it is something that is in the works by a number of companies. Automated integration. AI is helping vendors work together through APIs and data translation. And thirdly, shared AI development, joint AI model development, and shared machine learning capabilities between companies and vendors, as well as amongst the vendors. Another new development is cloud native partnerships. So cloud computing is enabling new partnership models with ecosystem partnerships, API first relationships, and shared revenue models. Essentially, instead of one-to-one relationships, we're seeing ecosystem partnerships where multiple vendors are collaborating around shared platforms, and partnerships built around API integration that enable rapid deployment and iteration, as well as revenue sharing based on mutual customer success. The subscription economy is also creating a shift, with the shift to subscription and usage-based models changing the partnership economics as follows. Partnerships are now focusing on customer lifetime value, not just initial deals. The success metrics align more with customer retention and expansion, and risk and reward are increasingly shared between partners. What this means for you is, first, develop ecosystem thinking. Success increasingly depends on how well your vendors work together. Secondly, invest in partnership technology. Tools for managing complex partnership relationships are becoming essential, and build adaptive capabilities. So the pace of change requires partnerships that can evolve quickly. In terms of the 5-year view, seeing out to 2030, organizations that now start building these capabilities will have significant competitive advantages. AI-powered partnership matching and management, blockchain-enabled partnership contracts and performance tracking, industry-specific partnership ecosystems that will provide comprehensive solutions, and partnerships that include shared customer success responsibilities. So again, some key takeaways are that strategic vendor relationships are going to deliver measurable ROI through cost optimization, innovation acceleration, scalability, and risk mitigation. Success requires intentional structure, including clear goals, defined processes, and proper governance. The best partnerships evolve from transactional relationships to strategic alliances that drive mutual success. Common challenges are solvable with the right approaches and mindset, and the future belongs to organizations that master partnership ecosystems and leverage emerging technologies. So here are your next steps. First, do an assessment. Which of your current vendor relationships have strategic potential that you're not maximizing? Step 2, choose one key vendor relationship to transform using the framework we discussed today. And thirdly, schedule partnership planning sessions with your chosen strategic vendor within the next 30 days. The companies that ultimately master strategic vendor partnerships will outperform, out-innovate, and outgrow those who do not. So thank you. If you have any questions on strategic partner management, or you would like to talk about our involvement in anything along those sorts, this is my contact information. I'll now take questions.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you,
I'm just going to remind the audience you can enter questions in the Q&A, and we're going to review a couple of questions that came through. What are some best practices for setting clear performance metrics to hold vendors accountable?
So that's a great question. So I would start first with a sort of workshop, and we're internally at first. And so I would discuss with us, C-level executives, if possible, what exactly the chief business goals, objectives, and aims, as well as any new sort of product or service offerings may be for the year. I would then immediately go to the middle management and talk about their specific projects, that they're working on and initiatives. And what I would do then is try to get things as granular as possible with very specific KPIs and or deadlines that are tied to those business goals and to the initiatives of both C-level executives and middle managers.
Perfect. Thank you. And our next question that came in is, in your experience, what are the most common pitfalls in vendor selection or management, and how can we avoid them?
So I think that there are a couple different pitfalls that immediately come to mind. And so, the first one would be outdated offerings. So, for instance, my firm is both a tech development firm. We build applications as well as, work with AI to do everything from building chatbots to, interactive software and apps. And we also have a digital marketing arm. And one thing we often see whenever we come in to replace other vendors is outdated technology, whether, and I'm not just talking about legacy systems and, things that are clearly outdated, but also, marketing agencies who are offering, things like SEO without offering GEO or SGO, search generative optimization in the age of ChatGPT, in which it's very important to be optimizing for AI and not just traditional search. And, these things that, may have been relevant to algorithms, 2, 3, 5 years ago are now outdated. And so it's very important, to look for a vendor who is on top of the latest, tips, trends, technology. It's no longer just, oh, those things aren't just tactics. Those things are important parts of a strategy. And so I look for things like, social media postings. I look for things like newsletters. I look for things like, even having conversations with the project managers and asking, about what they're doing. In terms of the latest updates to software compliance changes, algorithms, and the sort. But that would be one of the most common pitfalls in vendor management that I see directly. Another one is just it sounds kind of obvious, but I would say having the right people on each team as points of contact. Recently I had a client who, liked to work very slowly, very deliberately. This person was our point of contact was very detail oriented and, preferred to really mull things over. Whereas like myself and, a couple other project managers on my team can be very direct and very, you know, fast paced. Not that we're not methodical, but we certainly like to keep things moving. But I noticed the disconnect almost immediately, and I was able to find a project manager on my staff, who, really just worked more congruently with the client's preferred way of doing things. And so I think that is also a very overlooked but very important thing is just having that congruency between teams and that they communicate well together and have the right points of contact in alignment.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, Nikki, we're out of time. Thank you for an insightful keynote. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today for this session. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand. Our next session will begin at 11:35 a.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be a thought leadership titled Recovery Without Regret. Automate, orchestrate, and recover with confidence. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be directed to that session. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you again.
Thank you.